No, right. So this specialization course is divided into three parts. First is Python, second is machine learning, deep learning, and then third is the generative AI. Now, in order to understand the generative AI concept, it is very important that you are well versed in Python. Because nowadays what is happening is that so people directly jump onto the generative AI concepts. They don't know Python or they just know very basics, and then they directly jumps onto the generative AI. And when they try to climb up the ladders in the generative AI area where Python is required, then that's where they basically fail. So it is very important that as we gradually learn generative AI concepts, we should be well aware and well versed with the Python concepts. So I will be teaching the Python concepts right from very basics. And this course was designed keeping in consideration that even if you don't know, programming, or even if you don't know any basics of Python, so we will be covering from very scratch. So that's the main, intention about teaching Python before starting the generative AI concepts. Now, this is what I have shared in my last lecture, right? How the Python journey will look when we will be moving forward in this particular course. So Python is divided into four parts. First one is Python level 1, which is basic Python. Second is Python level 2, which is data structures in Python. Third is Python level 3, which is intermediate Python. And then Python level 4. Now we are starting with Python level 1, which is basics. And I hope you guys have already installed Python in your system, and PyCharm, that is the Python, development IDE in your local system. So what we will be covering in today's lecture is data types in Python, variables, and built-in functions, and then naming convention. How do we comment in Python? And then print statement. So print statement is uh, there are a lot of things that I used to cover in print statement. So let's see how much we'll be able to cover in today's lecture. But yeah, I am going to cover each and every basic aspect of the concept that I'll be taking. So let's get started. Now, talking about Python. So Python is a uh, high-level programming language, and it was invented by a Dutch programmer. So you can see it is Guido van Rossum. But when we talk about a Dutch name, so this will be pronounced as Fido van Rossum. So Python was invented by a Dutch programmer, Fido van Rossum, in Netherlands in 1989. Now, it was during the Christmas holidays of 1989 when the world was slowed down and everyone was on vacation. So Fido van Rossum started a small, side project in Netherlands. So he started developing Python as a side project, and that's the idea. He was having an idea. He had a picture of Python when he started the development, and that everyone knows, right? That would soon grow into one of the most influential programming languages ever created. So Python is one of the most influential programming language in today's world. So he started working on Python in 1989 during Christmas holidays, and he officially released Python on 20th Feb 1991 as Python version 0.9.0. Now, Python became the successor of ABC programming language. So it's not like that Python is evolved from ABC programming language, but yeah, before Python, there was a language known as ABC programming language, and Python, uh, handled all the drawbacks and the limitations of ABC programming language. Hence, we call that Python became successor of ABC programming language. And as you know, right, so Python is one of the most popular and growing language, which is widely used in web development, data science and analytics, machine learning and artificial intelligence, scientific and numerical computing, Internet of Things, network programming, cyber security, and whatnot. So Python is everywhere. And when we are, talking about the generative AI or AI ML, so if you are not well versed in Python, then you are doing something wrong. So before learning the ML AI concepts, or before jumping onto the generative AI concepts, it became it becomes very important that you learn Python right from very scratch, right? Now, talking about Python's design philosophy. So, what philosophy Fido van Rossum kept in mind when he started developing Python during 1989 Christmas? So, one of the important philosophy was code readability. Code readability, when I talk about code readability, he wanted to make sure that code readability is enhanced. Hence, the syntax and the basic Python, what you say, syntax that he had created, he kept that in mind. And second one is significant indentation. So indentation, if I'm talking about indentation, so indentation, basically in Python, we use white space indentation instead of curly braces to delimit blocks. So you might have, noticed, if you might have, worked on Java or any other language. So we are using curly braces to denote these curly braces as a programming block, right? But these curly braces add an additional, text or additional symbol in the code. Hence, it little bit reduces the readability. So, in order to improve the readability, what Rossum did was he had basically introduced white space indentation instead of curly braces to enhance the readability. So that's why in Python, there are four spaces that we basically introduce when we do coding in Python. So there are four spaces that we basically starts with. Now, four spaces, it can be any space. We can use only one space also, or we can use four spaces also, which is a standard practice, or we can use even eight spaces also. I mean, it depends on you. But the thing is that whatever spaces you decide, you have to be uniform with that particular number going forward. Means in that particular file or in that particular Python code, whatever indentation you decide, you have to be uh, uniform with that particular indentation number that you decide. Okay. So this is about the Python's uh, design philosophy when Rossum had invented Python. Now talking about programming paradigms. So paradigm, the meaning of paradigm is basically a way to do some work, right? And programming paradigm means way of programming, right? So there are different ways of programming. So different programming paradigms in computer science are, procedural programming, object-oriented programming. So if you uh, consider Java, so Java is a, typical example of object-oriented programming. Then event-driven programming, functional programming, logical programming, aspect-oriented programming. So there are a lot of program paradigms in computer science. So talking about Python's programming paradigms, so Python supports following program paradigms. So it supports procedural programming, it supports object-oriented programming, and it supports functional programming. So that's why in Python you can create classes and then you can create the code without classes also. But if you notice in Java, you cannot write code outside classes, right? Because that's an example of typical object-oriented programming. But Python basically amalgamates all these kinds of programming paradigms into one single language. That's why you'll be able to write Python code without even creating the classes. You can directly start writing the script, just a single line of print statement, and you are good to execute your Python program. So this is about Python's programming paradigms. Now, okay, so these are some of the instructions about installing Python. So you guys might have already have installed Python. And these are some of the IDEs that we use for Python. So PyCharm, which is from JetBrains, Visual Studio Code, Jupyter Notebooks, PyDev. There are a lot many IDEs for Python. And to be very frank, it depends on you, whatever you want to basically use. So it's up to you. But I use PyCharm, so that's where I have recommended you to install PyCharm. So this is about the introduction of Python, right? How Python was invented. So it was invented as a side project during the Christmas holidays in 1989 by Rossum. Now let's see what else we are going to cover. Let me create a new mind map. Okay, cool. Now, so today is day one. So day one, first thing that we are going to see is the Python data types. So what are data types in Python? Then after data types, we'll be seeing the variables in Python. Now, as part of variables, okay, I'll come to this later. Then next thing that we are going to see today is about naming conventions. And then how do we write comments in Python? Okay, now talking more on variables. So what we are going to see in variable, first thing is what is variables or what are variables? A general definition of variables in programming language. Then rules for naming variables in Python. Then third thing will be assignment, in how many ways we can do variable assignments in Python. And then inbuilt functions or inbuilt Python functions that we can use on variables. Some important functions which are, which you can basically use on variables. Cool. And then naming conventions. So there are many naming conventions, right? Camel casing, kebab casing. Oh, I'll come to that later on. And then Python comments, in how many ways we can add the comments in Python. So let's get started with Python data types first. Okay. Cool. Okay. So talking about data types. So what is data type? So data type is an attribute. So first of all, what is data type? It's an attribute. Okay, first thing, associated with a piece of data. So this is a piece of data. We are talking about a piece of data and an attribute about that piece of data that tells a computer system how to interpret its value. It refers to the type of value a variable has and what type of mathematical, relational, or logical operations can be applied without causing an error. So whenever you are defining a variable, let's say if I'm defining a variable a equal to 50, or let's say b equal to Python. Now, if you can see, if you look closely, these two values a and b holds different kind of value. So a, if I see, it is holding a numerical integer data, and if we see b, it is holding a string data. So the type of data which any variable is holding is known as data type. So in this case, above one, it is integer. So data type is integer in this case. And in the second case, where b equal to Python, b holds a string kind of value. So string and integer are few of the data types that exist in Python. So these are the overall data types that are there in Python. First is numeric data type. Then numeric is divided into three parts: integer, float, complex number, and then integer is divided into int. BIN means binary, OCT means octal, HEX means hexadecimal number. And then numeric second data type under numeric category is float data type. For example, if you will give a equal to 3.2, so a is a float data type here where you represent decimal, decimal places, and then complex number. Then we have Boolean data type, and we have a sequence type. So sequence type, in sequence type we have string, list, and tuple, and then set and dictionary. So these are important data types in Python. And yeah, we have one more data type, none. So when we define any variable as none, it represent nothing. So if you, basically, none represent that it do not belong to any data type. It is nothing, means it basically used to represent that the variable does not belong to any data type. Okay. So this is the quick introduction on data types. Now, next thing is variables. So we will start with variable. So what is variable? Now, when we talk about variable, so variable is a storage location paired with an associated symbolic name. All variables are reference pointing to some object and no explicit declaration is required. Okay, so what happens? Let's say we have defined a variable a equal to 50. Now, when we define a equal to 50, then in a memory location, some space will be assigned to and we have a value 50 inside that, and name given to this particular memory location is known as variable. So when we declare this variable like this, then it will you know uh, it will occupy some memory location, and in that memory location it will store the value, and that memory location, in order to name that memory location, this variable name is used. So the name given to this particular memory location is known as variable. Now, all talking about second part, all variables are references pointing to some object. Now what happens is that we treat all the variables as an object. So object, you can consider that, you can consider that as a memory location itself. That memory location contains some value, and then a basically points to that particular memory location. I'll come to this part later on, don't have to get confused, but for now you just understand that all variables are reference pointing to some object. Third point is no explicit declaration is required. So what does it mean? So in other programming languages, let me take an example of Java. So if I want to define an integer a whose value is 50, I have to give explicit declaration. For example, int, I will write a equal to 50, like this I'll write, right? Now, this int which I am writing before the variable name, this is about giving the explicit declaration to this variable. But in Python, you can directly define a variable and give it some value. So here you don't have to explicitly mention any data type. Python will by default, consider the data type as per the value assigned to the variable. So that's what this point number 3, talks about, that there is no explicit declaration which is required in Python. Now, in order to name the variables, snake casing is followed to name variables in Python. Okay, I think a lot of theory as of now. Let me uh, take some examples here and show you few things. So when you open and create project in your editor, when you right click, you can create Python file. So usage variable, let me write it down, and then this is the file that I have created. And let me increase the font size also. Okay, this is okay. Now, when I'm declaring a equal to 50, so this is done without any explicit declaration. So I don't use int a equal to 50 like we do in other programming languages. I can directly write a equal to 50. So this is of integer type. Second thing is that let's say if I'm giving this as a equal to Python, now this a basically holds the string value, hence the data type of this a variable becomes string implicitly. You don't have to explicitly mention that is string a equal to Python. It will by default take it whatever value you basically define inside it. So this is the introduction about variables. Now second part, rules for naming variables in Python. Okay, so talking about rules of naming variables. First of all, snake casing is followed. Naming convention I'm talking. So naming convention I'll cover in I'll cover more on it in some time. But as of now, just understand that we are following snake casing is followed to name variables in Python. Second point is the variable must start with a letter or underscore. Must start with a letter or underscore. So what does it mean? It means that you cannot start the name of the variable starting with a number. It cannot start with a number. I think I have written down these points in slides, so let me open that directly. Yeah. So it cannot start with a number. So if you are trying to give 12 AB or 9 count, something like that, it will give error. So let's say if 9A I am giving. So I cannot name a variable because the name of the variable cannot start with a number. And if I'll hover over it, it will give error, right? I can start the name of the variable with underscore. So underscore a when I'm giving, it will take it. There is no harm in starting the name of the variable uh, with underscore. Yeah, Sai, you want to ask something?
Uh, can we reassign a value like with a different type, initially with integer and then with string
Yeah,
for
you
the
can do
same
that.
variable?
Yeah, so if you write a equal to Python a equal to 50 and then a equal to true, it will give warning, but no error will come. It will tell that redeclared a defined above without usage. So if I'll do print a here and if I'll run this program, so whatever last assignment was done, it will consider that variable and print it value. Now warning it is giving, the warning, it says that, I mean, it indirectly says that a is already defined. You are again, declaring the same variable with different data type. But yeah, with respect to the declaration, you can declare it without any error. Now talking about the types of, I mean, the naming rules that we can use in order to name the variables. Now it can start with a letter or an underscore that we have seen. It cannot start with a number that also we have seen, and it can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscore, nothing else than that. Alphanumeric means, first of all, alphanumeric. So alphanumeric means alphabets plus numbers. So combination of that. And it alphanumeric do not include special characters. Okay. So what I mean is that count 9. This you can use. So count 9 is a valid name. It is a alphanumeric. But 9 count you cannot use because you cannot start the name of the variable with a number. So 9 count will give error, but count 9 will work fine. Now, if you'll try to include a special character, so special characters are mostly the character that are mentioned over your number keys on your keyboard, right? Exclamatory mark, at the rate, hash. So if I, let's say, try to use at the rate, it will give error, right? So you cannot use special characters. You can use alphanumeric characters. Now, the variable's name cannot be keywords. So keywords, so there are some keywords which are there in Python, for example, break, continue, and there are some, reserved words in Python that comes with the Python standard library. I mean, when the Python was developed, so there are some of the words that Rossum has used in order to define some functionality within Python, right? So for example, break, continue, pass. So these are some of the reserved keywords. So you cannot use those reserved keywords. For example, let's say if I'll try to use break equal to 40, it will be throwing error because break is a predefined keyword in Python. So if I'll hover over it, it will tell that break outside loop. So I mean, it is just understanding this break as a break keyword that's there in Python. Now, if you want to use the variable name which is existing keyword, so you can play around with the uh, uh, what you say casing of this particular word. So break may, if you'll make this B capital, then you will be able to define this variable. So it will not create any problem. Now B R A, let's say if I'll define A capital, then also it will be fine. So if you want to use variable name to some predefined Python keyword, so you have to play around with casing. Once you change the casing, you'll be able to use that as a variable name. So these are some of the rules which you have to follow while naming the variables in Python. Not talking about assignments. So when I talk about assignments, uh, how do we do that? So okay, there is one more. Let me write that down. Single variable, multiple assignment. There are four ways in which you can assign the values inside Python variable. What are those ways? First one is single variable, single assignment. Second is multiple variable, single assignment. Third is multiple variable, multiple assignment. Fourth is single variable, multiple assignment. Let's see these cases one by one. So first one is single variable, single assignment. Single variable, single assignment is simple. Whatever we are seeing so far is single variable, single assignment. This is a single variable, A is a single variable, and we are assigning a single value. So this is single assignment, single variable, single assignment. Second is multiple variable, single assignment. So I can assign multiple variables, single assignment, like this: A equal to B equal to C equal to 40. Now what I'm doing here is that I am assigning single variable, I am using multiple variables and I am assigning single variable value to all these variables. C also will be 40, B also will be 40, and A also will be 40. So this is the example of multiple variable single assignment. Now next case is multiple variable multiple assignment. So multiple variable multiple assignment means, let's say A comma B comma C, I am giving some value 1 comma 2 comma 3 like this. So this is the example of multiple variable. Here left hand side there are multiple variables, and right hand side we have multiple values, right? So this is the example of multiple variables, multiple values. Now if you look closely to these line number 4 and line number 6, so in line number 6 we have used comma, right? But in line number 4, where we are assigning multiple variables to single value, we are using equal to sign. Now this is a very common pitfall. So what people try to do when they are learning Python for the first time, so they basically try to do this way. So when you do this way, you will be able, I mean, if I'll do print of A comma B comma C, and if I'll run it, it will throw me error because you cannot use comma here, A comma B comma C. So in order to define multiple variables and single value, you have to use equal to sign here. And if you'll run this now, it will be able to print the values. So just remember this pitfall, that in multiple values, multiple variable, single values, you have to use equal to sign. Whereas in multiple variable, multiple values, you can use comma basically to discriminate between different variables. Now, these are the three important ways in which you can do the assignment. The last one is single variable multiple assignment. What does it mean basically? So single variable multiple assignment, let's say if you are doing A equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. So this is the example of single variable multiple assignment. And if you are printing the value of A, so what happens in this case? So this will be treated as a tuple. If you run, this will be treated as a tuple. You may get confused that A can have any value 1 or 2 or 3, or it can have the last value also which I'm assigning, but no, that's not the case. Here, what happens is that it will be the value A where you are giving multiple assignments to single variable. This will be treated as a tuple. So this is how we can do assignments of variable in Python. Single variable, single assignment, multiple variables, single assignment, multiple variable, multiple assignment, and single variable, multiple assignments. Cool. Now coming to the next part. So we have seen this part, we have seen this, and we have seen assignments. Now let's talk about inbuilt Python functions that we can use on variables. Okay. So what are inbuilt Python functions that we can use on variables? First function, okay, let me go to the mind map only. Okay, so the first function that we'll be going to see will be the ID function. Second will be the type function. Third will be is instance function. So these are the three important functions that we will be going to see how we can use on variables and what are the usage, what is the basic use of these these functions basically. Now talking about the ID function first. So ID is basically Python's inbuilt function that returns the unique identifier of an object. So it is basically the identifier which represent the memory address of the object. So when we have defined A equal to, let's say 50 is something that we have defined, right? A equal to 50. So what I have told you is that it basically stores some memory. It basically stores some memory. It stores value inside that, and A is the name of the variable which represents or which identifies this memory location. Now this memory location will have some memory address also, right? It will have some memory address. So memory address is of integer data type, because memory address, in order to represent some memory address, you will either represent it with a string or alphanumeric or numerical value. So in this case, the memory address is represented by a integer, which is basically, which you can come to know when you use ID function. So when you use ID of A, it will basically give you the memory address of that particular variable. Let's see that. So let me define A equal to 50. First of all, okay, in order to print anything, so we use print statement. So print statement we'll be covering in much detail later on. But for now, you just understand that this is a simple print statement by which we can print the values. So when I'll do print A, it is giving me the value, right? Now after print A, let's use ID function. So ID of A when I'll use, so this particular line will give me the memory address of this particular variable. So when I'll run this, see, this is the memory address it is giving, which is of number type or numerical type, right? So ID function is uh, basically used to give the memory address of a particular variable. And no two objects can have same identifier. Every object is uniquely identified with a with an identifier. Okay. So ID is basically used for knowing the memory address of a variable. So this is about ID function. Now talking, the second function basically is the type function. Now type function is something which gives the data type of the variable, right? Now let's say I have defined a equal to 50. I am printing that variable and I want to know the data type of this variable. Because what happens, sometimes you are using variable and you have, let's say, 10,000 lines of code and you are not sure where you have declared this variable, a variable, right? It can be anywhere. Now, in order to see the declaration line that, okay, let me see where I have declared a, the simplest way is to use the type function to know what data type I have defined to this variable. So when I'll run this program, it will basically print the data type in this particular format. So you can see int. So it basically, whenever you are printing type of a, it will start with the angular bracket and then class it will write. And then after class, it will define the data type of that particular variable. So this is the data type of variable A. Let me change it to, let's say, let me write it down as tuple. So A is a tuple. And if I'll run this, it will tell the data type as tuple. Similarly, it can be anything. I mean, I can use any data type, any type of variable. I can create any type of variable. It will give the appropriate value of that particular data type. Now, complex number. So let me define a complex number also. So for defining complex number, I use complex keyword, and then I'll write, let's say 3 comma 7j, right? So if you remember, we used to define complex number as something 3 plus 4j or 4i. So this represents the imaginary part, this represents the real part. So the same is supported in Python. And in order to define a complex number, this is how you define the complex number. And if you will uh, run this, it will give the class as complex, basically the complex class. Now, one more thing. So for defining the variables, Boolean variables, we use true and false. Now, point to be noted here is that the true and false that you define should start with a uppercase character. So if you define true in this way, it will not recognize this as a Boolean value. In Python, the Boolean values are represented by true and false, where the first alphabet is uppercase. So these true and false, in many programming language, you define true and false where every letter is in lowercase. But in Python, you define that starting with a uppercase. So for these values, for Boolean values, you define I mean the class, when you use type function on this variable, it will give bool, bool, something like this. And if, let's say, I'll try to do a equal to true, smaller, it will give error because that's not how you define the Boolean values in Python. So just remember true and false, F capital, T capital when you are defining it. Okay. Now we have seen one more data type, right? One more kind of variable, none variable, right? So if I'll define a equal to none, so it basically represent nothing. And when I will run this program, it will print none, and that data type or the type of this variable will be none type, none, none type. So this is the uh, use of type function. So type basically used to define the data type of the variable in Python. Next function is instance function. Uh, okay, yeah, is instance function. So is instance function is used to check if the object belong to a particular class. Okay, how does it basically work? Let's take these examples one by one. For example, uh, let's say I have I have to print and then is instance I am using is instance, and then is instance will be taking two arguments. So first argument, let's say the number which I want to check, and int I am giving here, right? Something like this, which I have written here. So I'm directly writing this in the print statement. So what it will do is that it will check whether this five number, the number five that I have defined as the first argument in this function, does it belong to int class? If it belongs to int class, it will return true. If it doesn't belongs to int class, it will return false. So when I run this program, it is printing true because 5 belongs to int class. You have seen previously, right? For int data type, the output, when I have used type function, the output was something like class and then int, right? Something like this. So here, this particular thing, so whatever is there in this particular thing in the output that we have seen in type, you have to exactly mention that part. Instead of int, if I'll use integer, let's see what happens in this case. It will throw error. So you have to be stick to the format that comes when you run type function on any variable. Now, if I'll use instead of 5, let's say I'm using Python here. So it will check whether Python is an instance of int class. No, it is not an instance of int class. It is an instance of str class. So when I'll run this program, it will print false. Now, there is one more catch here. The second way is basically, so this, okay, talking about the function. So function has two arguments. This is first argument. This is second argument. Now, as part of this second argument, I can have multiple values also. Multiple values as in I can give second argument as tuple of values. Now, what it means is that it will check if Python is present in any of these. I mean, if Python, the type of Python is any of the element present in this tuple, it will tell the value as, I mean, it will return the output as true. So here in this case, when I'll run this program, it will print true. So this is the usage of is instance function. So is instance function, we basically use two arguments. First one is the value which we want to check, and second one is the type of that value that we want to check. It can either be a single value or it can be the tuple of values that we have to check. Okay, cool. Okay, so in our lecture daily, I mean every lecture, so we'll be taking 10 minutes break in between, so you guys can have your tea, coffee, bathroom breaks. It's already 6:55 p.m. IST, so I'll just start 10-minute timer, and we'll meet after 10 minutes. We'll continue our session after 10 minutes. You guys can have a 10 minutes break, and then we will meet after 10 minutes. And I'll be covering the naming conventions and then Python comments after this, and then probably the print statements in Python. So yeah, I will meet after 10 minutes. Thank you. Hey all, welcome back. Okay, so next thing that we are going to see is the naming conventions. Naming conventions in Python. I mean, first we'll discuss about the overall naming conventions and then what naming convention we follow in Python for different kind of things. Okay, now talking about different naming convention that exists in programming world. First one is camel casing, then kebab casing, then we have snake casing, all lowercase, all uppercase. So what is camel casing? So first of all, we'll see what is camel casing. So camel casing is divided into two categories, upper camel casing and lower camel casing. So let's say upper camel casing, let's say sum of number is something which I want to define using upper camel casing. So sum, okay, so sum of number contains three words. So I will write all the words, I'll join all the words, sum, and then the first character of every word should be in uppercase. So sum of n capital numbers. So we have three words, sum of and number. We combine all the three words and then first character of every word, which is S, O, and N, will be in capital letters. So this is about upper camel casing. Not talking about lower camel casing. So in lower camel casing, you again uh, combine the words, but the first character of the first word will be in small, that is sum, and then rest other the first character for rest other word, the first character of the word will be in uppercase. So sum of number. So this is lower camel casing. And the one above is the upper camel casing. Now talking about kebab casing. So kebab casing is also divided into all lower and all upper kebab casing. So when we talk about all lower kebab casing, then sum of number, let's say if I want to write, so sum, and then I will write this uh, hyphen of number. So this is all lower kebab casing. Now talking about all upper kebab casing. So here every character has to be in uppercase. So sum hyphen of hyphen number. So this is all upper kebab casing. Now talking about snake casing. So snake casing. So snake, if you just imagine a snake. So snake when it is slithering over the floor. So it is it's kind of every time it is on the floor, right? So using that concept, when we talk about all all lower snake casing, so when we combine the word, we combine the word with underscore, sum of number. So this is all lower snake casing. So this underscore represents something. You can think this underscore is something which is near to the floor, and snake basically, it slithers on the floor. So that's where this particular concept came and the name came, snake casing. And in Python, we follow snake casing. So Python is a snake. So using that, you can remember. So as Python is a snake, so in Python, mostly we follow snake casing. So this is about all lower snake casing. Now all upper snake casing in this, it will be sum of number. So this will be all upper snake casing. Now we have single, double trailing, leading snake case. I'll not cover much in this, but yeah, for single leading snake case, it will be something like starting with the underscore and then some variable name. Double leading may it will be starting with two underscore and then some variable name. trailing snake casing में you will be writing the variable name and then underscore. Double trailing double trailing snake case, you will be writing the variable name and then two underscores. And then double leading and trailing snake casing. In the starting, you have two underscore, then name, and in the end, you will be having two underscores, something like this. We'll cover this later on where we are using this in Python. Then all lowercase is, you'll be combining all the words. So sum of number is there. So sum of number in continuation, you will write all in lowercase. And all uppercase may you will be combining all the word in uppercase, sum of number. So these are the different naming conventions that are followed within the IT industries or within different programming languages. Now, talking about naming convention in Python. So in Python, you have to give the project name, variable function name, class name, exception name. Well, these are the things that you have to handle in Python. And when you are handling these, naming, you have to name these things in Python. So you have to follow some naming convention in order to tackle this. So when we talk about project name, so project name, the standard way of naming a project in Python is basically using lower kebab case. For example, if I want to write down my project, so I'll write my and then project like this. So this is a general standard way of naming a project in Python. So you can follow any other naming convention. There are no hard and fast rule. Nobody is going to stop you. There will not be any error if you'll name in any other format. But that's how the standard way of naming a project looks in Python. So you basically name Python in lower kebab case. Now talking about variables, functions, and methods. So here what you do, you basically follow lower snake case, lower snake casing. So lower snake case for I've already shown you, right? Sum of number, if you want to write a sum of number, that's how you will be defining the variables, and then function name also follows the lower snake casing. So for example, I want to name my function, my func, something like this, I'll write, yeah, lower snake casing. Now coming to class name and exception names in Python. So when I'm talking about class name and exception names in Python, we follow upper camel casing. So let's say my class is what I want to name. So my class, this is how I will define my class name using upper camel casing. And let's say any custom exception I want to give, custom exception name. So custom exception, and every exception that you define uh, in Python ends with error word. You should end it with error word. So this is how you will define custom exception error, your exception name, whatever you decide to give, whatever name you want to give it to your custom exception that you are defining. Now for constants, when we talk about constants, so constants are all upper snake casing is something what we follow. So my constant, something like this I will give. Packages, module name. So for these, the naming convention is basically to stick to one word. So the standard way is basically stick to one word. And again, I'm telling you, there are no hard and fast rule. I mean, people differ from these naming convention, but what I'm talking right now are the standard way of naming these different things in Python. So when we talk about packages and modules, we have to stick to one word. Let's say I want to define my package, right? So it will be all lowercase. So my package is something what I will define. My module is something what I will define. So people in different project they use camel case lower this snake casing also. My package like this also. My module like this also they define. Sometimes they define my package camel casing also like this also they define. So they, I mean, nobody is going to stop you, but the standard way is to stick to one word using all lower casing in that particular word. Okay. Now talking about the private variables. Now when we talk about the private variables, so private variables are basically something that we define using single leading snake case. So single leading snake case, when I talk, it is uh, something like this. So this is how we define private variables. Now variables to avoid conflicts with Python keywords. So we have already seen either you change the name, casing in that. For example, break if I want to define. So like this I can do, or best way is to basically use single trailing snake case in that. So break if I'll do, I can use trailing snake case in this. So break. Now this will be a valid name for me. And then name mangling and magic method are some little bit advanced topic. I will cover it once I'll cover that part. So for name mangling, we will be basically using double leading snake case, which is like this. And for magic methods, so magic methods, so init, so there is a magic method which you use in your scripts where you check if init equal to main. So those are the magic methods. There you basically use double leading and trailing snake case. So double underscore init and then double underscore again. So these are the usual naming conventions that are used in Python. So I mean these are the standard naming convention. Okay. Okay, so this is about the naming convention. Now, next thing that we are going to cover are the comments, Python comments. How do we basically add comments in Python? So this is divided into two parts. One second. Okay, so this is divided into two parts. First is single line comment. How do we write single line comment? And then multi-line comment. Multi-line comment. Now let's see how do we add comment in the Python. And basically, what is the use of Python comment? Let's see that. So when I'm talking about comment, so comment is a text note that gives an explanation about the source code and makes it easy for programmer to remember the complex things added to the code, right? So they basically act as a documentation in the source code, and a good code always contains well organized comment to enhance the readability. So you should be basically building the habit of putting the comments in your code to give good readability. And when you'll be putting nice comment in your code, it will act as a documentation also within your source code. So this is the whole purpose of adding comments, right? So that if you are doing something, some special thing at a particular line in your source code, then you should add a comment why you are implementing that logic. So any documentation or any informational input that you want to give to the reader, for that purpose you add comments in any programming language, right? Now in Python, as I said, we can give comments in two formats: single line comments and multi-line comments. So let's see how do we add comment in Python. Okay, let me write down print hello world. So this is a simple usage, a simple script that I'm writing. And before that, I want to put a single line comment where I'm writing program to print simple string. Now, this gives me the clarity that whatever print I am doing here This I'm doing just to demonstrate simple print, simple string basically. Now this is single line comment. So in order to add a single line comment, you use hash symbol. So you start your line with a hash symbol and then you write your comment. So this is a single line comment. So if you want to write more lines, comment line number 2. So you have to keep on adding hash symbol and then keep on adding your comment like this. Okay, so this is single line comment. So you using hash symbol, you have to again and again use that hash symbol in order to add single line. Now talking about multi-line comments. So when we talk about multi-line comments, multi-line comments. So this multi-line comments can basically, you can basically add multi-line comments in two ways. First one is using 3 single quotes. Second way is using 3 double quotes. Okay. So let me write down. So using 3 single quotes. This is a multi-line comment. Comments are in different lines. So when I'll run this program, it will print hello world. And this is how we do single line comment. So single quote ki jagah I can use 3 double quotes also. And double quotes when I'm using, again, this will work fine. If I'll run it, it will work fine. So these are the ways in which I use basically introduce comments in my Python code. Now there are some pitfalls, right? So when I'm using single line comment, let's say uh, single line comment I'm using here. Now before hash, I can have n number of spaces between before this. This will not create any problem. But when I'm using multi-line comment, it should start with 3 single quotes only. Uh, if I'll try to give space here, it will give error, unexpected indent. So in order to give multi-line comment, you have to start with the quotes itself. You cannot have space. But when you are giving single space, when you are adding single line comment, you can have any number of spaces before you start writing your single line comment. So this is about the comments in Python. Okay. Cool. So what we have seen so far, let's take a recap. So we have seen the history of Python, how the Python was invented and who was the inventor and how did he invented it. Then we have seen basic data types in Python. Then we have seen what are variables in Python. And then different, inbuilt functions in Python. So ID function was there, then type function was there, then is instance function was there, which we have seen along with the examples. And then in variables, we have also seen rules for naming the variables, right? That also we have seen. And assignment of the variables, how do we assign? Then we have seen different naming conventions in industry and Python's naming convention. And then few minutes back, we have seen comments in Python. How do we make comments in Python? So these are the things that we have covered so far. Now, next thing that we are going to cover is print statement, or rather print, let me call it as output in Python. How do we print output in Python? So output in Python using print function. Now the printing, I mean the print function, usage of print function, I have divided these into 9 parts. So let's look into these different kind of print functions that we use in Python. Let me add one more node here. So print function or statement. Okay, first print statement is simple usage of print statement. Simple usage of print function. Okay, let's see that. So simple usage of print function, we can basically use the print function through variables directly or directly. So when I'm talking about simple usage of print function, this also divides into 2 parts. Through variables or directly. Okay, what does it mean? Through variables and directly. It means that, let's check the first case, through variables. So that we have already seen. Let's say if I'm defining a equal to 50 and I'm using print a. So print a may inside a I am using variable, right? So this is through variables. So when I'm running it, it will be printing the value of 50. Now directly means instead of defining any variable, you can directly print 50 also like this. It'll still work, right? 50. So this is a very simple use case or usage basically. So directly you can give any value inside it of any data type. So let's say we take set 1 comma 2 comma 3. So this is a set. This can be anything, whatever you are providing inside print function. This can be of any data type, right? So if you run it, it will print that particular value. And it can be in the dictionary also. So in Python, you define dictionary with key value pair. Let's say A, this is first key, and second key, let's say B, you are defining as 2. So this particular part is dictionary, which you are giving directly inside a print function, right? And if you don't want to give it directly, you can give it through variable. Let's say you define a variable dict and you are writing it like this, and then inside you can write it like that. So this is also a valid usage of this is a valid simple usage of print function. Now second part is, okay, let me number it so that doesn't create any confusion. So this is the first part that we have seen, right? Second, we will be seeing the printing multiple values in same line. Printing multiple values in same line. Now, this can be done in 2 ways. Using plus symbol. Second way is using comma symbol. What are the difference between these two? Let's see one by one. So we want to print multiple values in the same line. Let's see how we can use plus and comma symbol. Let's say I define a variable a equal to hello, and I am printing let's say I am using say, and then I'm using plus symbol, and then I'm giving a here, and I'm running it. So it is basically concatenating this say and hello word. Now, if you look closely, so print function is there, right? How many arguments are there in this print function? So arguments are basically defined using comma. If there is no comma, you consider that as one argument, right? So print function may you can have total arguments. If I'm talking about arguments, it can have zero number of argument or one number of argument or greater than one number of argument, right? So यहाँ पे here in this particular example, it is exactly one argument that you are using, right? So that is why when you are using say and then you are using plus symbol and a when you are doing, so say hello is there, and just see here or notice here that there is no space between say and hello word. It is considered as a single argument. But instead of plus, if I'll use comma here, now if you will look closely to the total arguments inside this print function, so you have two arguments, 1 and 2. And whenever you are giving arguments inside print function, after each argument or between each argument, it will by default insert a space. So when I'll run this program, instead of continuation say hello, it will print say and then space and then hello. So it will basically print like this. So this is about printing multiple values in same line. Now, the benefit of using comma is that you can use any data type here. So comma के बाद a के बाद if I'll give 50 which is of int type, I can give true also which is of boolean type, and let's say I give tuple also. So यहाँ पे if you look closely, we have 1 2 3 4 5 arguments here, right, inside this print function. First argument, second argument, third argument, fourth argument, and this is fifth argument. So any kind of argument data type basically you can give inside it, and when you'll run it, each of these value will be printed with a space between these values basically. See, there is a space. But if you want to use concatenation or plus symbol, so when you are using plus symbol, all the values have to be string. Say, hello, hi. So there are three arguments, let's say in this case. So not argument, there is, I mean, eventually there is only one argument, but that one argument has three parts, right? So this has to be string. So if you run this, it will run fine. There will not be any space. But instead of string, if you will give any other data type, let's say 40, if you will be giving, it will throw error. It will tell that 40 is not of its string type, it is of integer type. So you cannot use any other data type instead of string. So what is the difference between these two? Let's recap it. When I'm using plus symbol to join the values, then uh, it can be used only on string data types, and there will not be any spaces between the values. When we are using comma, it can be used for any data types. You can use mix and match also, right? And there will be default space between the values. So this is the difference between plus and comma symbol. Okay. So this is about printing multiple values in the same line. Now, third part is printing uh, using format function. So printing using format function. So format function can be used in three ways. Let's see that. First, we will see just the first, basic usage of format function. Let me open the slide also. I think I might have written format function. Okay, yeah. So format function, when we are talking about format function, we can use that in three ways. So first, by using curly braces, then by using positional argument, and then by using keyword arguments. Now let's see these examples one by one using just the curly braces. So let's say if I'm writing print and I'll be writing inside double quotes and I'll be giving these curly braces, just the curly braces. So these curly braces, I want to define this as something, some dynamic thing which can be replaced when you use format function. So curly braces and curly braces are programming language. This is I'm writing, and then I'm using dot format. So basically, this format is part of what you say string functionality in Python, but mostly it is used in printing the values. So that is why I'm covering that as part of print statement. So here in Python, in format, if you will define, let's say Java, comma Python. So what will happen? This particular Java on the runtime, it will go at this position and this Python will go at this position. So when you'll run this program, the output will be Java and Python are programming language. So when I'm running this program, it is printing Java and Python are programming language. So this is the first usage of format function. That is just by using the curly braces, right? And if you'll notice here, if I'll ask about how many arguments are there in print function as of now, can anyone tell me? See, there is no comma inside it, right? I mean, comma is there inside format function, but on outer level, if you see within these curly brace, within these print statement, outer part, there is no comma. So if we talk about the argument, so there is only one argument here, right? So there is just one argument here. Now, second is using positional arguments. So positional arguments means uh, when I'm talking about this, let's focus on this part for now, format. So inside format, I am defining or I am giving arguments, right? So this argument basically start with index 0. This is 0. This is 1. Okay. So these are the index of the values inside format function. So this is something I can use inside curly braces. So 0, comma 1. So when I'll run this program, so 0th index 1 will go at 0th index wale curly braces pe, and then Python, I mean the value at index 1 will go at the curly braces where you have mentioned 1. So Java and Python are programming language. Now you can swap this also. Instead of giving 0 there, you can give 1 comma 0, and when you'll run it, it will print Python and Java are programming language. See, 1 will go at one position. And here you can both, at both places, you can use 1 and 1 also. Then again, it will print Python and Python are programming language. When you run this program, Python and Python are programming language. So this is the usage of, format function using positional argument. Now what happens? So here, the positional arguments, so we have two indexes, right? 0 and 1. Let's say instead of 1 and 0, if I'm giving something which do not exist inside format function, so what will happen in that case? So in that case, it will throw index out of range, index error when I run it. Index error, it is throwing, and it is telling that index 3 is out of range for positional argument tuple, right? Because the value which corresponds to index 3 do not exist in this particular tuple. The next thing is using keyword arguments. This is about keyword arguments. So keyword arguments, how do you do that? So inside format method, you define the keyword arguments. So how do you define keyword argument? You give key equated to value, a equal to Java. Then you give some key equated to value. So we have two keyword value pairs inside format method. Now instead of using any what you say positional argument, you have to use these keys. So A and B, if you will use, it will print. Java and Python are programming language. So I mean, again, so this also you can use A and A, or B and B, or B and A, something like that. And if something is not there, let's say C, if you are using and if you are running it, it will again throw key error, right? In this case, telling that the key C do not exist in the current context. Okay. So this is about printing using format function. So any doubts so far what we have seen or what we have studied in today's session? Is the speed slow? Is the speed fast? I know the people who are learning Python for the first time, they may think a little bit overwhelmed by the concepts that I have just showcased you. And people who already know Python, for them it might be a little bit too slow also. So we have to, cater every kind of trainee in this session. So people who are finding it slow, please bear it with me. And people who are new and who think that I'm going a little fast, do let me know. I'll try to adjust my speed. Are we good? Okay. Cool. Now, next part is about, that is part number, I mean the print usage of print function, fourth part. Okay. So print using ampersand symbol or ampersand operator. So print using ampersand operator, how do we do that? Let's see that. How do we basically print using ampersand function? Okay, so we call it as Python format specifiers. So format specifier ampersand we use. So the first ampersand that we use basically is a interface between format specifier and their values. And then second ampersand that we use it with some character which represent type of value that we want to replace. So for example, %d represent int value, %f small or capital, it represent float, %s string, and so on. So let's see the basic usage of using this ampersand. Let's say if we are using print and I'm giving this, this is %d. So this %d represent that whatever I will replace in this statement, this will be an integer value. And then second ampersand I will use, which will act as an interface between the statement and then the actual value. Actual value, let's say if I'm giving 2 in this case. So what is happening in this particular scenario is that 2 will be replaced at ampersand D. So the output will be this is 2. So when I'll run this, it will print this is 2. Similarly, if I write it down as percent %s and Python, if I'm giving here, so it will print this is Python. This is Python. Now I'm giving percent %s here. Okay. So instead of a string value, let's see if I'm giving integer here, what will happen in this case if I'll run it? It'll again, by default, it will convert this string, numerical value into string, and then this is printing. This is 20. But let's say if there is percent %d and I'm using Python here, in this case, what will happen? So implicit conversion cannot happen here. So in this case, it will throw error. What will be the error? Type error. It will say that percent %d format, a real number is required, not str. So this is how you basically use uh, format specifier or percent operator to basically print your values. Okay, now next thing is print using f string. So f string is a very important thing. It's been used basically f string was introduced from Python 3.6. Before Python 3.6, format function was primarily used, but all the latest Python coding, all the modern Python coding is done using f string. So that's an important thing. So this particular fifth part is print using f string. Okay, so what is f string basically? So to specify as a f string, so f string again, so it is used for formatting on the runtime, like the format function we used to do. So f string also used to format on the runtime. Now to specify a string, f to specify a string as a f string, we just have to put a word f in front of a string literal. What I mean is that basically if I'll do print f and uh, this is f string. So a f word that I'm writing down before the double quotes, this will be considered as a f string. So this is f string, and second line, let's say I'm writing. Let me write this is normal string. The difference is that in this string I'm using f keyword basically f character before starting my double quotes. Here it is a normal string, right? Whatever we have seen so far. So the first one is the f string. The second one is the normal string. Okay. Now with f string, let's talk about the rules now. With f strings or f string, what we can do? we can we can format the string, or we choose not to format at all. But when I'm defining f string, I can either format it or I can leave it as it is. I can decide not to format it. It's up to me. So for normal string is normal string, right? Normal string, if I'm talking normal string, you cannot format it. So that is where the concept of f string came into the picture, right? So when you are defining f string, you can either format it or do not format it. So this case that we have seen here, this is a simple case of f string where I have decided not to format anything, right? Here I'm not formatting anything. So this just here I have just defined the f string where I'm not formatting at all. Now, in order to format a value in a f string, we have to add a placeholder, right? So placeholder is something which we define using curly braces that we have seen, right? Format function, maybe we were using this placeholder. So when we choose to format, we have to decide a placeholder, and this placeholder can contain variable, operations, functions, modifiers. So let me show that in the slide. So yeah, I've added that in slide also. So this placeholder can contain variable, operations, functions, and modifiers. So let's see these cases one by one. So this is very important and might be a little bit complex concept also. Just pay attention, and when you go back, just try to do some practice on these f strings. So let me define one f string where I want to do the formatting. So this is, let's say I want to do a formatting right here. So in this case, let me write down a equal to 50 here. And I have told you that this placeholder can contain variable, operations, functions, and modifiers. And when it is containing variable, it can have using variable or direct value. Okay, using variable or direct value, as in this case I am using variable here. So यहाँ पे placeholder में I am giving variable. Instead of variable, I could have given direct value also. So when I'll run this program, what it will do, it will replace this 50 inside this. So the output will be this is 50. This is 50. When I'll run it, it is telling this is 50. Now, instead of this variable, this placeholder can have direct value also. So instead of A, I can give some value, let's say like this. So again, if I'll run it, it will run fine. It will print fine. This is 8787. So this is the first usage where the placeholder can contain variable. Okay. Now, the second one is placeholder containing operation. Okay. So placeholder containing operation, what we mean by that, by operation, is that 2 plus 3, something like that I can do. So it will first evaluate this 2 plus 3, it will evaluate it as 5, and it will print this is 5. This is 5. So second thing we have seen, it can contain operation, and again operation may be direct and indirect, directly and using variables also you can do. For example, a equal to 2 you are giving, b equal to 3 you are giving. So inside this placeholder you can give a plus b. So you are providing variables inside it or direct values inside it. So any of these will work, right? Then operations we have seen. The third part is the function. So function also, basically we can use inbuilt function also, and uh, custom function also. Let's say if I define a equal to Python, and if I'm using inbuilt function, I can use a dot upper function. Upper function or upper method is string method which will convert every character of this string into uppercase. So when I'll run it, it is giving me this is Python. It is giving me this is Python. And then modifiers is something what we can use inside it. So about modifiers, again, in modifiers we have a lot of things in modifier, but I don't want to confuse you, and I don't want to make this a complex thing for you. But let me give you very simple example of using modifier inside it. So modifier means uh, to use modifier. Let's say if I am defining a equal to some value, right? Let's say 78 point something like this I am giving. So this is a float value. Now, if I want to use modifier, so I want to modify this value. I want to adjust this value. So I'll be using first of all a. So if I'm using directly a here in this case, and if I'm running, it will give me the whole value that is being provided here. Now, if I want to use modifier, I'll use colon symbol and then point 2f if I'm writing. So what it will tell that after decimal, consider two digits. So when I'll run this program, it will print 78.98. It will basically print up to two significant digits. So this second digit it will round off and then it will consider. So that is why it is printing 78.99. So this is the simple usage of modified the modifier that you can use in f string. So f string, try to do more practice on f string because this is being used very common nowadays, and it's a relatively new concept. So have some practice on it, and yeah, I think for now for today's session, I think this much is fine. Tomorrow we will be covering the different usage of print function functional print function what we have seen. So we have seen five kind of usage. Tomorrow we'll see print using SCP and END keyword, then printing new line, printing in the same line, then printing using single, double, triple quotes, and then printing using asterisk. So whatever is remaining, we will cover that in tomorrow's session, and then we will also start where we'll see how do we take user input in Python and conditional statements and loop. These things also will cover. Okay. Anyone has anything to bring up or any feedback, any suggestion, anything from anyone before we wrap up today's session?
Um, Yeah, now let me add a couple of things. When we are talking about these are all the concepts that we discussed today.
Hmm.
To make it a little bit interesting, if we can relate it to the machine learning or agentic AI that we are go forward with.
Hmm.
Let me make it. Let me give some examples. When we are talking about data types, we are talking about some unvariables. We are using type method to see what are the types that we that particular variable contains.
Hmm.
In machine learning terms, what we do is we create the data to train the model into tensors. It's nothing but an array. To make things simple, to make everyone understand, when I say it is a tensor, it is an kind of an array with
Hmm.
numbers. And
Hmm.
the important thing that we need to understand is in which format that data in that array consists. Is it in a float format? Is it in integer format? It is the important thing that we have to understand before we train our model to make
Right.
sure that the data is in the same format and what are the operations that we are trying to perform. What is the type that we are returning? We need to understand those things. So typing is very important in that one. And also, when we are talking about types in agentic AI format, whenever we create agents, we use some already developed language models, and we develop tools so that the language model can use those tools. And we need to make sure that the agent understands in which format the tool works, what are the parameters that we need to pass, what is the usage of the tool, all these things. That comes under comment section. We define a tool and we give a detailed description what the tool does, the description of the tool, what are the input parameters it will take, what are the return type the tool uses. All this comes under comment section. We give a detailed description in multi-line comments and single line comments
Hmm.
so that the agent that we are developing it will read the comments, it will understand when to use the tool, what are the input parameters that it has to pass to that particular tool, and what is the return type, and it can take the return type, and it can use it to respond back to some other to call some other tool or to respond back to the users. And when we are talking about the formatting the string in print, we need to visualize our model. Whenever we create a regression model or classification model, we need to visualize how the model is performing, and we mainly use this formatting string to see what is our model's accuracy, or how it is performing, what is the loss that we are getting. All those things we use this formatting string to display the what the metrics related to our model training. All those things will comes under the print statements.
Mhm.
The F string we will be using mainly there to visualize how our model is performing. So if we can relate a couple of things whichever we are discussing to the AI related stuff, it will be a little bit more interesting for everyone
Yeah, so the thing
to
is
make.
that why
Yeah.
I'm not, relating anything in the starting is that so I'm trying to follow top to bottom, approach. So because there are many people in this group which do not know programming language at all. So for them, teaching them the basics of, Python is the first, priority. And then later on, eventually, when we'll move on to the ML, we will, try to do the back mind mapping where we will, remind them that, okay, this concept we have, studied in that particular section when we were studying Python, and now we are implementing this concept as we are moving forward in ML and AI section. Because right
Okay.
now, if we'll try to
Let's
bring up ML
let
and AI things, it may
uh,
overwhelm them because see, if someone who is not doing Python programming at all, it might be a little bit overwhelming for them as well, right? If we'll try to bring a lot of technical jargons in the starting itself. So that is where
yeah,
I'm not touching ML AI at all for now. It's just that
yeah.
pure Python will be learning. Once the Python, they will be comfortable in Python, then we'll do the, back mind mapping of all the concepts that we'll learn in this class when we'll start the MLAI
Yeah.
session.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add one point. I know Raj, it seems like you have a lot of experience and you already know MLAI, but whatever you said, it just bounced off my head, and I'm like, okay. For me, right at this point of time, it's not easy to relate how it will be helpful with respect to ML models. So I think at this point of time, I have some experience in Python, but this was a really good refresher. But I feel if we kind of start relating them with ML models or like agents at this point of time, I think will personally be lost because I don't have any experience or I don't have any knowledge of MLAI. So I mean, I think it's a good
Yeah,
place.
my intention was to give to make things interesting. Maybe I would have talked something technical, which you guys may not aware of, but this is how it will relate in ML, or this is how we may be using going forward, just to highlight to make things
Yeah.
interesting. So to bring up a more interest on the topic that we are discussing, this is how we are going to use this somewhere in the future when we are talking about ML or AI.
Mhm.
So keep a point note saying that we are going to use this in the future in MLA, and we can keep more concentration on listening that particular topic. So things make a little bit interesting. That's what my intention was, not to talk about the technical aspects of the MLAI things.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah,
no,
cool.
definitely.
Makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I just want to, I do not want to bombard with the technical jargons as of now. But yeah, slowly and gradually we will ramp up when we will be ramping up the concepts. So I'll try to relate where we are exactly using it. But for now,
Eh,
I mean, it's like learning. So when you are, using English, when you are, let's say, try to learn English language. So first you will start with the basic concepts, right? Nouns, pronouns, verbs. Once you are comfortable in those concepts, then that's where you will start relating that, okay, now you have learned these concepts. They will basically help you when you are grammatically forming your sentences in future, or when you are delivering any lecture on the stage. So that is how these particular concepts will be used. But for now, these are the basic building blocks of Python that I am covering, which is very much required for creating your base. So we'll be starting to build brick by bricks. And yeah, wherever we want to, whatever Python specific concept or some special concept that we'll be learning in Python, and which is actually explicitly to be used in ML and AI, I will definitely point that out explicitly so that people will make a note of it, that in future we'll be using this particular concept explicitly when we'll be learning ML and AI. But yeah, so overall, so how is it as a refresher? So whoever guys knows Python or whoever are new, so how's it? How's the basic feedback from your side? So I just want to know about the speed. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? I know for people like Raj and anyone who knows Python, it may be a little bit boring. But for people like Vishant, I think Vishant and Tulsi also knows Python. So for you guys, how is it? I mean, did you guys grab the concept that I have explained in today's video? Is it fine for you guys? I think Vishant has given up a heads up. So I'll take it as a yes. Cool. I think we are 7 minutes over. So tomorrow we'll connect and we will be seeing more on the print statements, and then different parts like different other concepts like conditional statement and for loop and other things. So yeah, basic concepts. Cool. I think that's pretty much it then. Thank you guys. Have a nice day ahead. See you tomorrow.